Hello, my name is Nick Lewand, and today I'm going to be talking about my CSC450 final project, which is on SQL injection. Now first, we have to go over what SQL injection actually is. SQL injection is when you take a SQL query, and now SQL is a database structured language. Think of it as a bunch of Excel spreadsheets stacked on top of each other, and it's a way to interact with them. Now we see here in this query that I took from MySQL that you have a username and a password input. Now, typically, of course, you'd have username and password. But if we use a truth statement to kind of get around with it and manipulate it, like 1 equals 1, it would allow us to actually bypass it. And we can see down in the result grid that that's what's happening. I'm using the truth statement, and it's returning the username and password. That's what the SQL injection is, and it can be problematic if you're not accounting for it. Now, some of my goals were to use PHP, which is a web development language, HTML, which is I wanted to have a front end, so a place for the person to actually enter the username and password in the weak implementation and the strong one. And I wanted to use Microsoft SQL Server. I have previous experience with SQL Server for my internship this summer, and I wanted to use it as it's something I'm familiar with. And some of my roadblocks and outcomes as a result of those is I switched from PHP to Flask. This is mainly because I'd never used PHP before, and although I wanted to take the opportunity to learn it, it was out of scope, which is why I switched to Flask, which uses Python. And because of my experience with Python, it was much easier to use. And HTML stayed the same. My implementation with the HTML on this project is pretty simple, so there was nothing really to rework there. And I actually switched from SQL Server to MySQL because MySQL is free, and I honestly didn't want to spend the money on SQL Server. It was harder to use, but overall it was very useful to learn because it actually gave me a more in-depth understanding of SQL because MySQL primarily uses command lines and such for the SQL queries. And in conclusion, I would say the motivation for this topic was because SQL is something I'm really going to be using a lot of in my career. I'm really interested in network engineering, cloud solutions architecture, things like that. So SQL and the experience with it is going to really come in handy for me. The most important non-technical thing that I learned would probably be how to improvise and adapt. And switching from PHP to Flask, there was a lot of moving parts and things didn't really match up. So I think just my critical thinking and problem solving in that aspect really grew, and I think it shows through the way that I changed implementations. Three most important technical things that I learned probably has to be Flask and MySQL and also HTML. Obviously, I have the experience with Python, but I never used the web development features of Flask. So that was really interesting to get a hold of and learn. And also HTML, something I have very little experience in before this project going in. So after the project, I'm a lot more secure and have a deeper understanding of HTML. And of course, MySQL, it's a different implementation of SQL that I'm not really used to. So learning to that proved very interesting and challenging, but ultimately very rewarding because rather than just having experience with one kind of SQL, I now have experience with two different, like, I guess, front-end SQL developments, which was really huge for me. Something I learned about myself is I guess I'm better at this whole computer science thing than I thought. I get a lot of, I guess, imposter syndrome. Whenever, especially, it's weird because I'm in a 450 and I literally graduated this weekend, so I should feel more secure in my position and my technical abilities, and I think this project actually really helped a lot in that front. And I think what I'm most proud of is actually learning MySQL. Um, it's something that I like really wanted to do. I wanted to deepen my understanding of SQL, and I think that this project allowed me to do that. And of course, I just want to take the time to acknowledge Berea College and the Berea College Computer Science Department for helping me throughout my entire Berea College journey. And I'm so excited to go forward in future endeavors. Thank you so much.